Sodales. So, let's talk about virtual assessment. And if you're watching this video on the day that I made it, you're watching it on Election Day 2020, which is why I chose a theme of voting machines. And I was grateful to the good people at search.creativecommons.org for a whole bunch of really wonderful, easily reused pictures of voting machines. Those remind me of the ones that were used when I was a child. I used to go when my mom and dad would vote. They would bring me, and whoever wasn't voting, I would be with them, and they would go into the booth, and it had the little curtain, and it opened and it closed, and I got to use one of those one time, the first time that I think the first election that I was able to vote in, and then they went the way of all such things. But I never used one quite like that. I was around for things like that, but I have no memory of things like that. Anyway, let's talk about making a choice, and not just on election day. It's a scary time for a lot of people, and not just on election day. And when times are scary, there are different choices that we can make about how to respond, different kinds of stories that we can tell ourselves about how to respond. Just this morning, I saw some people trying to figure out how to respond to the new translator app that is included with the latest version of iOS. And they were scared, and they were mad, and they were sad, and then some were glad, because the story that you tell yourself about any kind of change can make a big difference in how you respond, right? Now here's another voting machine that looks like the ones that I remember from my childhood with the little levers. You can tell yourself a story of anger and denial, and you can try to fight against whatever the change is that's coming. The teachers who were fighting against the translator app, it probably won't work in the long run to fight against changes that are coming, but in the short term, you could get some results. That's a choice that you can make, though. You get to choose. You might choose a story of frustration and resignation. I've definitely chosen that one a few times in my life. Throwing up my hands and saying, there's nothing I can do. For my teacher friends on that one Facebook group who were fighting the online translator battle, that sounded a lot like, well, I'm just going to pretend that it doesn't happen. I'm just going to keep on giving the same tests and quizzes and things that I've always given, and I don't even care but they do care. And underneath that story of frustration and resignation is another story that they're probably not telling. But that frustration and resignation story, sometimes that's what you need in the short term. Again, you get to choose. And sometimes we choose a story of hope and improvement. Even on that discussion about the online translators, people were already having discussions of, okay, so how can I use this to be a better teacher, to help my students be better at learning the languages that they're learning, to help lead to the bigger picture goals that I have of people understanding each other better. And I was really happy to see that people were choosing, because you can choose differently. And just because you made one choice today, just because I was angry and denying today, or frustrated and resigned last Wednesday, doesn't mean I'm stuck in that story, right? I always get to, on any given day, at any given moment, I can look at the story that I'm telling myself. I can step out of it for just a minute. I can ask myself, is it working? Do I like it? Is it true? Is it helpful? I can ask questions like that. And if I don't like the answers, if it's not true and it's not helpful, or it's partly true but it's completely unhelpful and it's making me an unhappy, bitter person, I can make a different choice. And I can always choose a story of hope and improvement, even in the darkest of times. So, here's my challenge, and it's not just a challenge on election day. Think about the story you've been telling yourself. Think about specifically the little one about what's going on, the medium-sized one about what's going on in your class today, the bigger one about who I am as a language teacher and what is this work that I actually do. Ask yourself, is it still serving me? Do I want to keep it the way that these voting machines are being kept in the warehouse for until the next election? Or do I say to myself, no, it's time to make a change. It's time for a different story. And if you're ready for a different story, watch this space, because we're going to be talking soon about an opportunity for you to make a better one that isn't as difficult or complicated or hard as the one that you may have been telling yourself. Best of all, you don't have to do it alone. So, watch this space, choose well, and think about the results you've been getting from the story you've been telling yourself. And until we meet again, Walete Sodales.